When hardship enters our lives, the first instinct of the heart is to ask Allah to remove it. We raise our hands and say, Ya Allah, make it easy. Ya Allah, take this pain away. This response is natural because pain feels unbearable when we experience it for the first time. But Allah, in His wisdom, often responds to our dua in a way we do not immediately recognize. Instead of removing the pain, He strengthens the heart that is carrying it. Allah does not always change the situation around you because sometimes the situation is not the real problem. The real issue is how fragile the heart feels while going through it. So Allah works on the heart first. He increases your patience, your emotional endurance, and your spiritual depth. Slowly, without you realizing it, you become capable of carrying what once felt impossible. If Allah removed every difficulty the moment we asked, we would never develop resilience. We would never learn to rely on Him deeply. Strength is not built in moments of comfort. It is built in moments where the heart is stretched beyond what it thought it could handle. Allah allows that stretching so that the believer grows instead of collapses. Many people look back at their lives and say, I don't know how I survived that phase. The truth is, Allah expanded their capacity during that time. The pain stayed, but the believer became larger than the pain. This expansion of the heart is a form of mercy, even though it arrives wrapped in difficulty. Ease does not always mean the absence of hardship. Sometimes ease means that the hardship no longer controls you. Allah teaches you how to breathe while carrying weight, how to remain steady while everything feels unstable. That is a different kind of ease, one that stays with you long after the trial passes. So when you feel that your dua has not been answered, look closely. Allah may not have removed what you are facing, but He may have already strengthened you enough to face it without breaking. A life filled only with ease can slowly weaken the soul. When everything comes easily, the heart forgets its dependence on Allah. Gratitude becomes shallow, patience remains undeveloped, and faith stays untested. Allah does not want His servant to remain spiritually fragile, so He does not give comfort without purpose. Growth requires resistance. Just as muscles grow only when they are challenged, the soul grows when it is tested. Without hardship, faith remains theoretical. It is only through difficulty that belief turns into conviction and trust becomes real reliance. Allah knows that constant comfort can lead to heedlessness. A person surrounded by ease may slowly forget dua, prayer, and reflection. Hardship interrupts this forgetfulness. It forces the heart to pause, to ask questions, and to return to Allah sincerely. This is why some people who live through great trials emerge with softer hearts, stronger iman, and deeper humility. Meanwhile, those who never face resistance often struggle when even minor difficulties appear. Strength is unfamiliar to them because it was never developed. Allah does not deny ease. He delays it until it no longer harms you. He allows you to grow first so that when ease finally arrives, it does not distract you from Him or weaken your character. In this way, hardship becomes a form of preparation. It shapes the soul so that ease, when it comes, becomes a blessing rather than a test. We often want Allah to change our circumstances immediately. But Allah, in His wisdom, focuses on changing us first. A situation may remain the same on the outside, but inside the believer begins to transform. Allah strengthens patience before granting relief. He deepens reliance before opening doors. This ensures that when the situation changes, the believer does not crumble under new responsibilities or blessings. If Allah gave you what you wanted before strengthening you, it might have overwhelmed you. Strength always comes before expansion. Allah prepares the vessel before filling it. This internal preparation is often invisible. Others may not see it, and even you may not recognize it at first. But over time, you notice that you react differently, think differently, and respond with more calm than before. Allah's method is gradual. He builds endurance quietly through repeated challenges until the heart is no longer fragile. Only then does Allah change the situation. When the believer is ready to carry what comes next, hardship often feels like rejection because pain speaks louder than wisdom in the moment. When doors close repeatedly and relief seems delayed, the heart begins to question its worth. But in reality, Allah does not reject the ones He is displeased with by placing them in difficulty. Rather, He leaves them in heedlessness. Training, however, is only given to those who are meant to grow, just as an athlete is pushed beyond comfort to build strength. The believer is placed in situations that develop patience, sincerity, and resilience. The discomfort you feel is not a sign of abandonment, but evidence that Allah is shaping you for something greater. When Allah trains a servant, He removes the illusions of control. Hardship strips away the false belief that we are self-sufficient. In moments of ease, a person may unknowingly rely on their own abilities, resources, or status. But difficulty humbles the soul and redirects reliance back to Allah. This redirection is not meant to break the believer. It is meant to realign the heart. Through hardship, dua becomes sincere, prayer becomes urgent, and remembrance becomes a necessity rather than a routine. Training also refines character in ways comfort never can. Patience is not learned when life is smooth, it is cultivated when delays test the heart. Gratitude deepens when blessings are scarce. A mercy grows when one has experienced pain personally. Allah uses hardship to polish the soul, removing arrogance and replacing it with humility. What feels like loss is often the removal of traits that would have harmed the believer later. Many people assume that if Allah loved them, He would make their path easy. But love is not proven through ease, it is proven through preparation. Allah prepares His beloved servants for responsibilities they cannot yet see. Leadership, wisdom, and spiritual depth all require endurance. Hardship is the classroom in which these qualities are taught. Without these lessons, the believer would collapse under the weight of future blessings or trials. Training is repetitive by nature. The same type of test may appear again and again, not because Allah is ignoring your struggle, but because the lesson has not yet been completed. Just as a lesson is repeated until it is mastered, hardship revisits the believer until patience becomes natural and trust becomes firm. Each repetition strengthens the heart, even if it feels exhausting at the time. One day, when the trial has passed, the believer often realizes they are no longer the same person who entered it. What once triggered fear now brings calm. What once caused panic now invites reflection. This transformation is the true purpose of hardship. Rejection leaves a person empty and distant from Allah. Training, however, leaves the believer stronger, closer, and more grounded in faith. Even if the scars of the struggle remain, dua is one of the most intimate acts of worship because in it the servant speaks directly to Allah with honesty, need, and hope. When a person raises their hands, they often expect a very specific outcome at a very specific time. But Allah listens beyond the words. He responds with perfect knowledge of what the heart truly needs. The absence of an immediate result does not mean the dua was ignored. It means the response is unfolding in a way the human mind cannot yet comprehend. Many believers limit the idea of an answered dua to seeing exactly what they asked for. But Allah's response is broader and wiser than human expectations. Sometimes he gives what was asked for. Sometimes he delays it. Sometimes he replaces it with something better. And sometimes he protects the servant from harm through that dua. What appears as silence is often protection working quietly in the background. There are moments when a person looks back and realizes that had their dua been answered the way they wanted, it would have caused pain, loss, or regret. Allah sees outcomes we cannot see and futures we cannot imagine. When He redirects a dua, it is not denial, it is mercy disguised as disappointment. The heart may feel confused, but the soul is being safeguarded. Dua also changes the one who makes it. Every sincere supplication softens the heart, increases humility, and strengthens reliance on Allah. Even before the outcome appears, the act of making dua itself brings reward, closeness, and peace. Allah loves to hear the voice of His servant returning again and again, not because Allah needs to be reminded, but because the servant needs to be shaped. Sometimes the answer to dua comes in the form of strength rather than solutions. The problem remains, but the believer finds themselves calmer, more patient, and more grounded than before. This inner transformation is often the greatest response, even though it goes unnoticed at first. Allah may not remove the storm, but He teaches the heart how to remain steady within it. On the Day of Judgment, believers will see rewards for duas they thought were unanswered. They will wish that none of their supplications had been fulfilled in this world, realizing how much Allah had stored for them instead. At that moment, it will become clear that Allah was responding all along, not according to human urgency, but according to divine wisdom and perfect timing. Key point 6c, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was strengthened through trials iska bib now or en main. Next topic ka pojlia karokads. The life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, is the clearest proof that trials are not a sign of rejection, but a pathway to strength and elevation. From the very beginning of his mission, he faced rejection, mockery, loss, and isolation. He was called a liar, a magician, and worse, not because he was wrong, but because he was carrying the truth. If trials were a sign of Allah's displeasure, the most beloved of Allah would have lived a life free of pain. Instead, his life teaches us that closeness to Allah often comes with heavier tests. He lost his parents at a young age, experienced poverty, and later endured the loss of his beloved wife, Khadija, may Allah be pleased with her, and his uncle Abu Talib in the same year. A year known as Am al-Hazn, the year of sorrow. These losses did not weaken him, they deepened his reliance on Allah. Pain did not harden his heart, it softened it, making him more compassionate toward others who were suffering. One of the most powerful moments of trial was in Taif, where he was rejected, humiliated, and physically harmed. Stones were thrown until his blessed body bled. Yet even in that moment, he did not respond with anger or revenge. Instead, he turned to Allah with humility and restraint. This moment did not break him, it revealed his emotional and spiritual strength. Through that hardship, Allah elevated his rank and preserved his mercy for generations to come. Throughout his life, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, faced hunger, threats, and betrayal. There were days when no fire was lit in his home, and yet his trust in Allah never wavered. These struggles trained him to lead with wisdom, patience, and mercy. Every hardship refined his character, preparing him to guide an entire ummah with balance and understanding. His trials also taught him emotional control. He felt grief, sadness, and pain. But he never allowed hardship to make him unjust, bitter, or distant from Allah. He taught us that strength is not the absence of emotion, but the ability to carry emotion without losing faith. Through his example, we learn that it is possible to hurt deeply and still remain spiritually grounded. When we reflect on the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, we realize that our own trials are not signs that Allah is displeased with us. They may be signs that Allah is shaping us, strengthening us, and drawing us closer. His life reassures every struggling heart that pain can coexist with purpose, and hardship can be a bridge to nearness with Allah. There are moments in life when something feels so heavy that it seems to shatter you completely. The heart feels cracked, confidence collapses, and you begin to question how you will ever stand again. But Allah's wisdom works beyond the moment you are in. What feels like breaking is often the process of reshaping. Just as a seed must split open before it grows, the believer must sometimes be broken open for strength to emerge. Pain has a strange way of revealing who you truly are. When everything is comfortable, character remains hidden. But when hardship strikes, patience, sincerity, and reliance on Allah come to the surface. What breaks you emotionally today may be stripping away pride, false attachments, and unrealistic expectations. Allah removes what you depended on so that you learn to depend on Him alone. Many people look back at their hardest seasons and realize that those moments changed them forever. Not because the pain disappeared quickly, but because it taught lessons comfort never could. What once felt unbearable later becomes the foundation of wisdom, maturity, and emotional strength. Allah does not waste pain. Every tear has a purpose, even when the reason is not immediately clear. Breaking also creates space. Space for humility, space for growth, and space for Allah's guidance to enter more deeply. When a person is shattered by loss or failure, they become more aware of their need for Allah. That awareness is a gift. It reconnects the heart to its Creator in a way ease never can. Tomorrow's strength is built quietly, while today's pain feels loud. The believer may not notice the transformation happening within, but Allah is strengthening patience, deepening faith, and teaching endurance. When tomorrow arrives, the same thing that once caused collapse no longer has the same power, because the heart has been fortified through struggle. One day, you will look back and realize that what you thought destroyed you actually prepared you. The pain you survived becomes the strength you carry. The chapter that felt unbearable becomes the reason you can now support others. What broke you today did not end you. It built the version of you that tomorrow required. There is a pattern in how Allah works that many hearts only recognize after they have passed through hardship. Relief rarely comes first. Before the situation changes, Allah changes the believer. The weight may remain, the problem may still exist, but something inside becomes firmer, calmer, and more grounded. This inner strength is not accidental. It is preparation. Allah knows that without strength, relief itself could become a test too heavy to carry. Often, people pray for their circumstances to improve, unaware that they are not yet ready for what they are asking for. Relief without strength can overwhelm a person, make them ungrateful, or detach them from Allah. So Allah strengthens the heart first. He teaches patience through waiting, trust through uncertainty, and humility through need. When relief finally arrives, it rests on a heart that can hold it without losing faith. Strength also protects the believer from collapsing if relief is delayed again. Life does not remain stable forever. Allah prepares His servants for cycles, ease after hardship, and hardship after ease. By building strength first, Allah ensures that the believer does not crumble each time circumstances change. The heart becomes resilient, anchored in faith rather than conditions. There are times when you realize you are calmer than you used to be, Even though the problem is still there, that calmness is not coincidence. It is Allah strengthening your inner world. Fear decreases, panic softens, and dua becomes more trusting rather than desperate. This shift is often the sign that relief is closer, even if it is not yet visible. Relief that comes without preparation often leads people away from Allah, but relief that follows strength brings people closer. When a believer has tasted struggle, they recognize ease as a gift rather than a right. Gratitude deepens, reliance remains, and arrogance has no place to grow. Strength before relief preserves the heart. Sometimes the greatest relief is not the removal of hardship, but the ability to carry it with peace. When Allah strengthens you, He gives you the ability to stand steady even if the storm has not fully passed. And when relief finally does arrive, it feels lighter, more meaningful, and perfectly timed. Because the heart receiving it has already been made strong. When you ask Allah for something repeatedly, you often focus on the outcome and forget the responsibility that comes with receiving it. Every blessing carries weight, tests, and accountability. Allah, in His mercy, does not hand over what you desire until your heart, mindset, and faith are ready to carry it. Preparation happens quietly through patience, waiting, and sometimes disappointment, but it is never without purpose. Many people think delay means refusal, but in reality, delay is often training. Allah prepares you emotionally so you do not panic when things change. He prepares you spiritually so you do not forget Him once your dua is answered. And He prepares you mentally so you can make wise decisions when new doors open. Without this preparation, the very thing you begged for could become the cause of your downfall. Sometimes Allah prepares you by taking things away. He removes comfort, false support systems, and overconfidence so that when the blessing arrives, you recognize its true source. A heart that has been emptied of reliance on creation is a heart ready to receive from the Creator. What feels like loss is often purification before elevation. Preparation also includes reshaping intentions. What you once wanted for ego, status, or comparison slowly turns into something you want for peace, stability, or service. Allah refines your dua so that when it is answered, it aligns with goodness rather than harm. This inner shift is a sign that Allah is working on you, even if the situation outside has not yet changed. There are moments when you realize you are no longer desperate in your dua. You still want the outcome, but you trust Allah even if it does not come immediately. That calm trust is preparation. It shows that your heart is learning to surrender control, and surrender is essential before receiving any lasting blessing. When the answer finally arrives, it often feels different than expected. Not because Allah changed His promise, but because He changed you. The joy is deeper, the gratitude is stronger, and the reliance remains intact. You then realize that the waiting period was not empty time. It was the most important part of the journey. There are questions the heart keeps asking during hardship. Why now? Why me? Why so long? In the middle of pain, answers feel distant and impossible to grasp. Allah does not always explain His wisdom immediately, because some understanding only comes with time, growth, and perspective. What feels confusing today may feel perfectly clear tomorrow, once the heart has matured through the trial. Delay protects the believer from outcomes they cannot yet see. What you wanted earlier may have arrived at the wrong time, in the wrong state, or with consequences you were not ready to handle. Allah sees the entire picture, the beginning, the middle, and the end, while we only see the moment we are standing in. Delay is not denial, it is precise timing guided by perfect knowledge. As life unfolds, many believers look back and realize that had ease come earlier, it would have weakened their faith or redirected them away from Allah. The waiting period strengthened their relationship with dua, taught them patience, and reshaped their priorities. Ease delayed was not a loss. It was an investment in the soul. Understanding also comes when you witness how Allah replaces what was withheld with something better. Sometimes the relief does not come in the same form you expected. Instead of removing the trial, Allah may give peace within it. Instead of changing the situation, He changes the heart. That transformation becomes the greatest ease of all. Delayed ease teaches the believer to trust Allah without conditions. You learn to worship Him not because life is smooth, but because He is worthy of worship in every circumstance. This unconditional trust is a level of faith that cannot be achieved through instant relief. One day, when the chapter has closed and the dust has settled, the believer often whispers, "Now I understand." The pain makes sense, the waiting feels meaningful, and the timing reveals its wisdom. And in that realization, the heart finds a peace that rushed ease could never have provided.